Well, hello there. It's time for more Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone. Music by John Williams. Pardon me. Orchestrated by Hediwg Am. 1M3, the friendly reptile. So this is when he visits the zoo and the snake escapes, basically. And then towards the end they get home and Harry's put in a cupboard under the stairs. Yeah, it's really interesting. It starts off octatonic. T1 means it's a normal octatonic scale, by which I mean semitone, tone, semitone, tone, has been transposed up by one semitone. Hence T1 transposed by one semitone. T0 would just be starting on C. T1 starts on C sharp or D flat. So I put that here. Like that. So if we put all our fingers on there, like that, we then get that first sort of snake wakes up type sort of motif at that point. What's interesting is that we've got this sort of little snake-like type of 0134 in terms of the pitches at that point. And we've also got part of just a normal diatonic C melodic minor scale. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because that doesn't really fit in with our octatonic scale at all. And then if I play C sharp, C minor, like that. So we've got all of those notes going on. So it's very chromatic, but there are two different things going on at the same time, which is why it sounds chromatic. Which is the sort of thing that he occasionally does. This is Williams. And part of that is because he's preparing for more of this sort of Do You Miss Your Family type stuff, where it's all sort of much warmer. All of this sort of chordal stuff. He tends to do that sort of chordal harmony. That sort of idea. Like that. Sort of very Aaron Copland, really. But that's generally tends to be sort of familial. You'll find it in A New Hope at the farmstead, or the homestead rather, on Tatooine. Those sorts of types of chordal harmony or chords, which tend to be sort of chordal based, at least in the bass line. So they're not always sort of perfect fourths, but it does tend to be sort of chordal based. Lots of trills and frills and things like that. Lots of harp doubling as well, and synth celeste as well. A little bit of horn coming in at that point as well. More trills at this point. And we also have a interesting sort of pentatonic, which is an anhemitonic scale, in other words, no semitones. Like that. It's a sort of pentatonic, set 5-3-5, which is a bit of a natural development from the previous line, like that as well. Like that, it just sort of has some of those notes, and then it expands upon them as well, and then we get a little bit of imitation here. And I think that's another sort of Harry Potter sort of theme a bit later on. So those do sort of reappear. We've got it again here, this sort of snake-like thing. So here, in terms of chords, we've got sort of basically all counterpoint, C5 add 6-9, so essentially sort of quintal pentatonic, that sort of thing. We've got a D sort of half diminished but with an added ninth over E flat, D dim add 9 over E flat as well, F minor, and then C5 but with a B flat, F minor 7. Minor 7's been incredibly rare in any film music really, but particularly Williams. So we've got a sort of incomplete French 6 but without the third. So in other words, like that, but it's also octatonic, like that as well. So it sort of fits in with both of the different things that we had, both diatonic and octatonic. So that fits in there. Then we got our sharp 4, minor sharp 4 type set. That's 418. Oh, hello. Not sure what happened there. And then, interestingly, this little trill is actually made up of notes from C harmonic minor as well. So that sort of goes back to here, C melodic minor. Now it's harmonic minor. And it's sort of slightly comedic. So sort of lots of arpeggiation, lots of A minor at that point. More arpeggiations. Then it goes into a little semitonal shift. That sort of idea, B flat minor, then shifts back to A minor where we have that sort of theme, Nimbus 2000, but in fact it's just the snake disappearing at that point, or escaping rather. I think it should be a little bit faster than that. So that's what we got at that point. And it's all block chordal harmonization. What's interesting is this little horn melody, which is sort of plays along all of the chord notes. So you'll see here we've got A minor, still largely A minor, D minor, D minor but with an F in the bass, A minor, G sharp minor but also with, you know, a sort of dim seventh, chord tones of A minor, C minor, a fifth above B flat minor, then A minor, same as an A flat, and then E. So it really does sort of follow those sorts of things. See if we can get it to play along. Not sure that's the right speed, but anyway. Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that I can sort of willingly put down. It's very sort of simple. Here, I suppose the bass line doesn't always do exactly what you think it's supposed to. It does move. So actually in A minor still, even though like that, because I suppose you could argue that the B flat minor is just sort of very accented appoggiatura or neighbouring note or auxiliary note. Otherwise, the majority of the notes here are actually still A minor, hence why we got A minor in the bass. Here, very much D minor, still D minor, but with an F in the bass as well, just you know, first inversion. So it's all sort of rather diatonic, rather root position as well. Like that as a cadence. And then we're into a variation of these little things. Note how the counterpoint follows the melody notes with the rule that each harmonic beat contains a melody note. So as long as you have one melody note, one harmony note per harmonic beat, we're okay. And in fact here it's largely arpeggiated. Here it follows the tune. Like that, if you see what I mean. Hence all of those little sort of lines and things like that. I should really tidy those up. I think it's because the page went down a little bit. I'll do that a little bit later just to sort of save time in the video. But there we go, most of it's done. So slightly reduced orchestration, a bit more filigree in the violins, semiquavers at that point. And it sort of ends at that point, sort of B dim add flat 9, and then a little sort of like that. Whoops, I was in edit mode. Always do that. And then we're in A minor. Interestingly, which is a sort of, you know, a typical sort of transformation, sort of neo-Riemannian type sort of thing. But interesting, it's a reversal of Hedwig's theme at that point. Here, but here it's like that instead, and then it goes into block chords: A flat minor, A minor, F minor, B flat minor, C minor, C sharp minor. So all sort of block chords. As well, when it's sort of, it's magic. So that's that, and it's very much a sort of dominant preparation. In here with a sort of E, boom, boom, ba da dee 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 dee. Keeps going, lots of imitation, same thing. And then we have a slightly different sort of motivic idea. There we go. So that's that. Now, at this point, sort of French 6, so sharp 6, sharp 4, 3, but with a very classical in sound resolution towards, or outwards towards E minor at that point. Like that sort of thing. So, an interesting here, it goes into a sort of very dyadic type of place, and here the E is more of a sort of dominant, like that. So it's sort of quite discordant at that point, sort of rather ambiguous, but it still has that sort of Hungarian minor type of sort of sharp 4 type flavour. Goes into another bit of octatonic work. And then we're into sort of A minor add 9 with a C, a sort of Lydian thing, but actually it's kind of a B Phrygian, like that sort of idea. Sorry, I should have done that, otherwise it's Locrian. And then we're into sort of more of sort of the main theme in E again, this time with the same sort of filigree that we had right at the very start in the previous cues. So E minor, A Aeolian, E minor, A Aeolian. Interesting that he oscillates like that. Do you see what I mean? It's really weird. You know, if you put all of those notes, in other words, all of these sort of identifiable modes, instead of just the E pedal, it still works really, really well. It's this sort of pan-diatonic, like that. But it's really, really interesting how that seems to work. And then bit of jazz like that as well. Really, really extraordinary. So it's a sort of altered dominant type called 7/7 sharp 9, and then we got this sort of type of thing as well. But it's just interesting here. It creates our usual that sort of almost sort of sus type sort of chord, very jazz based, 0811 flavour. And then here, all of these sort of tonic minor to 7 modal, tonic prolongation, sort of a bit of a line cliche. And then we've got our E minor preparation for theme. So little chromatic neighbouring notes as well. F sharp sort of 7, minor 7, flat 9, flat 5, polytonal dominant chord prolongation, sort of 2/1, like that. And then another sort of out type sort of where we almost have a sort of like that, basically, effectively C7 above F sharp dim. Sort of 2/7 out to 1 in E minor, where we get that back again. So it's all of that sort of little preparation for Hedwig's theme. So and it used the second half of the so it's interesting, the upper extension here in the counterpoint, but actually interesting, they're all sort of C, like that sort of thing. I think I put, but I'm not even convinced that that's true actually, because it's still E minor harmonic, but I think it's because I reckon I've misread that and thought that wasn't a bass clef. So let's get rid of that. So I want to do that and just do E minor. Very easy to do, isn't it? Sometimes you sort of think, oh, hold a sec, there's bass clef there, not a C. Otherwise it would be... But in fact... like that. So yeah, my mistake. But very, very straightforward. All sort of arpeggiated, all arpeggiated notes. Occasionally, little chromatic passing notes. And here it's traditionally cadence F sharp 7. And he usually has sort of fun with the little filigree right at the end, and that sort of seems to change every single time the theme appears. It doesn't really repeat completely. There's always some other added variation at that point as well. So that's all we have, basically. It's a nice little cue, actually. It's really lovely. And lots of variety as well, which I really sort of find really interesting. Anyway, short and sweet, and it gave us a sort of nice opportunity to sort of listen to this sort of, you know, A minor theme. With this horn, next time you listen to it, have a listen for that horn 1, which sort of plays along, and all of these sort of little plonky bits as well, which is interesting. Notice no violins at that point. All sort of viola, harp 2, harp 1, that sort of thing. You won't hear both harps in a live performance because they only book one, so it misses a little bit of the same sort of timbre that you get in the film. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll see you again soon.